This is the After Party's Christmas Special. Your hosts are the Great Order and No White Guilt. The crown winner of last week was Blue-Eyed Bear, financially gifting 60 Save Those White Baby dollars. Congratulations to you once again, and thank you so very much, Blue-Eyed Bear. In second place was Mrs. Jess Horse, financially gifting $35. Thank you as well, Mrs. Horse, and congratulations. You may financially gift over the course of today's stream on Entropy at a cost of 15% to you. You can find that link down in the description. It is the No White Guilt Entropy. You can also watch the stream on Entropy, as well as ask questions in the question widget and vote on them. And they will not disappear unless you or I delete them. You may also financially gift on Cash App. You can find that in the description below as well. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests here on the After Party. Now, today, as you know, is technically the Yule Christmas special, so I will say a big Promethean holiday greetings, good Yule, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year if we don't get a chance to speak again before the new year. But I will bring on the one and only Mr. George into the program. How are you doing, brother?
Oh, hello. How is everybody?
Wonderful over here. We just got done listening to this guy's magnificent second piece, Far Away. And if people didn't get an opportunity to attend that premiere, it is now available in replay over on Jared George's YouTube channel.
Yeah, and it's on the music.
The afterparty.tv.
It's on the music page, music.thegreatorder.com, or you can get there from the main site too. And it'll be on all the different music stores. All the links are there. You could download it. Complimentary download. I don't charge you anything. Pay you what you think it's worth. There's ways to support. Well, yeah, we're happy to launch that song. Totally different from the first one. So this one's called Far Away. More stark for December. More moody acoustic vibes. And we're looking forward to celebrating this Christmas Yule special with a few of our friends. So it's Frody here representing Scandinavia. Is he with us yet?
He is, and let me back you out and bring him in. There we go. There's the one and only Frody. How are you doing, brother? Good Yule, Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas. Yeah, we're celebrating. Well, it's 11 p.m. in Europe, and we celebrate mostly on the 24th. So it's basically Christmas Eve soon, and it's time to celebrate. It's going to be a weird Christmas, I have to say, under these circumstances. But still, it's the tradition. So it's very good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So you are a big favorite of the entire white positive community and service to white well-being. So we had to have you without question for this special. So it's going to be weird. It is the entire year 2020 has been as weird as it could possibly be. In what other ways might it be different for you, or do you have any reflections on, I guess, at least recent events going on around the world? And perhaps if you can connect those to Christianity or Christmas or Yule, what's happening for so many of us across the West?
Yeah, well, I'm, of course, more familiar with what's going on in Europe in general than America, but the lockdowns are really bad in Europe now. You've probably heard of how things are in England, for example, with the Tier 4, as they call it. People are not allowed to visit their families. A lot of people are alone, and this is a sensitive thing because a lot of people feel especially alone around Christmas times, extra depressed, and if they're not allowed to meet their families, you can just imagine how that will affect a lot of people. And I have a friend who is in isolation right now because he I'm not going to mention his name, but he felt a bit sick, so he went to the hospital because he had some trouble breathing. So we went to get a test to see if he had this COVID, and they took 2 tests. Both came out negative, but just because he had been around other sick people in the hospital, he still had to go into quarantine. So he's going to be in quarantine in his own apartment over Christmas, so he can't visit his family. And I think that probably speaks for a lot of people. So I think it's very good that we have these live streams so that we can interact this way. I mean, generally, I don't like to substitute online interaction for, the real life thing, but it's a good thing that we've had this opportunity to talk, because I was just thinking, I was watching well, as you know, I do a lot of shows on films, and I talk a lot about films. And on a show we did a couple of days ago on A Christmas Story, which is a classic from the 80s, I was just reflecting on how things were back then, because it's just in the 80s. I mean, it's just a few decades ago, but it was a completely different world. One thing that was different is that everything wasn't relying on the internet, right? And everything wasn't on smartphones, etc. And I was just thinking to myself, what if we had that era, but everyone was locked up for almost a year like we've had now without all the distractions? That wouldn't have worked. People would have gone insane.
Yeah.
And I think it's both sort of it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's sort of a bad thing that our lives haven't deviated too much from the normal during like the lockdowns, because we spend so much time with sort of online life. So it's a double-edged sword. But yeah, I think this year has forced a lot of people to reflect on a lot of big issues in life. And especially, I mean, Christmas is, I've thought a lot about Christmas, and every year around Christmas time, I read up on the history of Christmas, and it's very interesting because it is the quintessential European holiday. It is an extremely European, of course, America is included in Europe in that sense. It is the European people, right? Because I mean, it didn't originate with Christianity. It's even older than that in Europe. So it is something that for the first several hundred years, Christians didn't celebrate Christmas, but it was such an important holiday, such an important event for all the Europeans, so they wouldn't give it up. So that it was just incorporated into Christianity, and it goes back a long way. So this is something that has been with us in one form or another for many centuries and even millennia. So I mean, that's a very interesting aspect, because it's such an old tradition. Of course, it's in a new form now, but it shows you how important it is to have these traditions, because they create a chain, a link to the past. They create a link to our forefathers, to show that we're not, I mean, I always emphasize it, that we are not individuals. We are a part of something greater. We're a part of a chain. We're just a link in a chain. And when you can see traditions that have existed in our people for hundreds of years, you can really touch it almost, this link between us.
Yeah, I mean, this is, when you're talking about the bio spirit of our people, it is something that flows through us. In my belief, and I'll pass it right to Jared George, my belief is that even if you could magically erase these holidays, everything that we've done, we would put this right back in place. As soon as we begin moving through and expressing our instinct, that biospirit, we would put this holiday right back in place, and it would be as magical and meaningful for us as it is today. Mr. George, I saw that.
I was tweeting this out and setting some last minute stuff up. So everyone, please share. As you know, we're a shadow band. We have to be the algorithm. And listening to Frody, actually, I'm glad you said what you said, because shameless plug, I was reminded that Henrik and I did a video together last year about this season. So I just put the link in the chats, both DLive and YouTube. But I titled the video, Frody, "The Season Is Us." I very strongly feel that ineffable Christmas or Yule spirit that we all tune into, like getting a radio frequency, even some of us, we know that like the commercialization is certainly a very less than ideal circumstance. I know different people, it depends on your personality, have like a different level of tolerance for this kind of thing. But even in the kitschiness, even in the commercialization of it, even though I don't participate in that, I can still look at some of the more superficial aspects of what passes for the Christmas season now. And it's still like there's this core in it that the spirit, the Yule spirit is still there somewhere underneath all of those layers of cheesy commercialization. And I can still get a smile sometimes, even out of the more commercial aspect, because no matter what forms it takes, no matter what masks it dons, there's still this fundamental spirit of this time of year. And I'm very into the idea, and of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in a moment. I think that it would go a long way for us to revive other folk holidays in other parts of the year and essentially get back to having about every 6 weeks on the solstices, equinoxes, and then the 4 in-between dates, all of the European festivals that more or less align with those times of year in the spring and summer as well. I think that would go a very long way to getting us back in touch with it in the whole rhythm of the year. It would also help people who, again, like you were saying, struggle sometimes with feeling lonely or not having something to look forward to. If you have about every 6 weeks, this new gathering of the tribes and your friends and your family, and a day or two to take stock and set aside this time, that would go a long way. And then, of course, imbued with, naturally, of course, in what I'm saying, those holidays and those celebrations would be imbued with symbols and stories and music, and everything is imbued with things that are native to who we are and resonate with who we are, because as we know, so much of this is through symbols and imagery. There's so much that goes on in the subconscious as well. But Yule itself, at least right now, and maybe always, it seems to be the most potent. It's the one that grabs us by the lapels the most. And there's a reason for that. And I go into it in that video. One thing that I remember from it is talking about the joy, but also tinged and mixed with melancholy. There's always this like duality with us, right? And a lot of the great Christmas carols, they do have a hopefulness to them, but there is also this tinge of melancholy too. And to me, that's magnetic. There's this, you're drawn in by that, like sweet and sour together. There's something about that. And of course, we could relate it to a lot of things. It's the return of the light right now, but we're still in the dead of winter. We're gathering together for warmth, literally and figuratively, gathering with friends and family in the darkest time of the year. But there's a lot of winter still to get through. But just everything, just the pine trees and the way Father Christmas, or what we call here in the States Santa Claus, looks, and elves and all of these things, they're in our race memory. I fully believe that. I don't think it's any kind of hocus pocus thing to say. And that's why, again, I named that video, "The Season Is Us." The spirit of this season and all of its contradictions, all the swirl of the different tensions of emotion are a kind of a mirror of our spirit.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. There are so many things that you said that are important. I agree that Christmas is definitely the most potent holiday that we have. I think there are many reasons for that. One reason is that in spite of all the commercialization that you mentioned, there is something magical about the Christmas season, because when you're a child, and the Christmas is a holiday for the children in a way, because some of my strongest memories from being a child are from Christmas, or the time around Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
I remember going out into the snow. I loved winter. I remember going with my grandfather to pick up a Christmas tree and putting it up in our house. Things like those are the things that are just filled with magic.
Yeah.
And also in the darkness, when we're not distracted by a lot of things in our visual field, we become more conscious in a way. I think that is why the dark season sort of awakens something religious in us. I think there is a reason. I mean, obviously, like I said, Christians didn't celebrate Christmas for the first several centuries. This was the rebirth of Sol Invictus, the invincible sun, and it's the same thing in the north. That was in Rome, in ancient Rome, but it's the same thing in the north. And there is something about a god being born in the winter, in the middle of the winter, because that is when we're most conscious of something bigger, higher above us. We look into the vast space around us, and it awakens something. We're not distracted at that time. I think that is a very important thing. And also just the fact that maybe we live in separate places, but once a year, everyone gathers and meets all their older family members, and we see each other getting 1 year older every year. And it becomes something tangible in a way. And that is the melancholy part of it, because as you grow older, a little bit of that magic that you had as a child sort of dies, and you see everyone, all of us are mortal, and all our family members are getting older. And it's sort of it's the cycle of life, right? So it's a new generation of children that you have to sort of create this magical atmosphere for. There's a lot of stuff there, but I agree that it's so important to gather together, the tribe, the family, and to go through this ritual, because different people are differently sort of religious on different levels. Some people might not believe in supernatural things, might not believe in God, might not believe in religious things. Some people are very religious. But the point is that many religions, basically all religions, they're based on rituals, because rituals, when you go through a ritual that all your family members have gone through, you just go through the ceremonies in a way every year. It creates a bond. It's a social thing. It's important, no matter what you believe about supernatural things or divine entities or whatever. You don't have to believe in it, but just going through the same ceremonies and the same rituals as your people always has done, that is something real, and that's something that you can see and experience firsthand. You don't have to believe in it as some sort of thing.
Participatory. It's about the participation first and foremost.
Yeah,
that's the bond and the bond. I agree with what you said too. I'm curious what you guys think about this, and anyone else, about the focus of the darker days. And isn't there something magical about a snowy day, when the snow absorbs a lot of the sound, and there's that quiet that the snow engenders physically, that it's literally absorbing a lot of the vibrations of sound in the air. And so there's this pad or this hush over things. Same thing in a different way with the longer nights. The longer nights don't bother me. I know maybe they bother some people. I was just talking to Greg on the Countercurrents radio show a few days ago, and he was saying as he gets a little older, it's starting to bother him a little bit more. So I don't know if it depends on the stage of life that you're in, but I've never experienced that where it bothers me. It's just a different mode. I mean, I remember sitting in the sun in summer, and I always do this, contemplating what winter feels like, and you can't fully bring yourself there, because symbiotically, and I know when you've been on our show, Frody, we talk about this because it's something you share with us that we care very much about, that a lot of the modern world conspires to break up holistic consciousness. And we have to remember that we're not separate. We grow out of the world and the cosmos, and we're interacting with it all the time. There's a symbiosis. And so as much as I have a rather strong imagination, I can't fully bring myself into that winter feeling sitting in the summer sun when the days are long. And I enjoy summer for what it is when I'm in summer. And now that it's winter, I enjoy winter for what it is. And you're slightly in a different mindset and state of, sometimes significantly, state of mind and emotion. But there's a magic to all of it. That's what I was getting at too about the festivals earlier, that if we have certain festivals that mirror our feeling and where we're at in that time of year, it's a wonderful marker, and there's a lot of richness there. What do you both think about that? Do the longer nights bother you, or do you actually get a certain joy out of them? Do you enjoy them, the reflection, maybe more time to read or talk, reflect?
Frody, please go ahead.
Well, I like the winter. I liked it more as a child. I've lived in the very north of Sweden, where you basically don't see the sun for a few months. When the nights are that long, that can sort of get to me, because it's also reflected on the flip side. In the summer, the sun never sets. And that can sort of mess with your brain. I've never really suffered from the cold. I enjoy when it's very cold outside. But when I never see the sun, it sort of messes with my brain, because it can sort of just look up over the horizon at midday, never really go up, and then just go down again. So you never really, there's never really a proper sunrise. Although
that I can't say I've experienced. Where
So,
I live, at least you get the sun between like I don't know, about 7 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. So that's a decent amount of sun. It's not like northern Sweden.
Yeah. So I mean, but no, I can't say it bothers me. I like it, and I like the contrast. I probably wouldn't like to live in a country that doesn't have the seasons. Because I like the contrast between the winter and the summer, and I in the winter I miss the summer, and in the summer I sort of miss the winter, and I like that. There's a dynamic to it, so I really enjoy the winter, and they have different qualities. The winter makes you more serious. You're more frivolous in the summer. You travel and you just do sillier things. Whereas in the winter, you have to be more serious, and it's in the winter, during the winter months, that our forefathers had to live very frugally so that they would survive, because they would have to save up all summer and then live on all of that, hopefully through the winter. And the people who had a good mind for that survived the long winters. So there's a sort of a deep meaning to it all.
Yeah, I agree completely. The winters and the night in particular, I guess, Jared, what you're talking about is definitely, and I guess a cold night rather than a hot night. I guess that can have a couple meanings in and of itself. But I wrote Prometheus Rising. I was only ever able to write in that story during the night. It had to be late at night, and I had to cut off access to other things. I needed to know that quiet or that mystery or that magic was out and about. And I think Frody's really hitting upon something when he says that some of our senses, particularly sight, is inhibited by the long winter, the dark, probably the cold as well. I mean, when the sensation of cold sets in on your flesh, it makes it nearly nigh impossible to feel other sensations. Whereas in the summer, other parts of the year, we can feel a tactile-wise, a wide variety of sensations. So yeah, there's plenty there that causes introspection. And I think that the magical element of that is, and this is what's important, is that it's inside of us, in that biospirit, through the continuance of Western kind. That's what we're tapping into. It's not something that is sort of this new age idea. I've heard these comments about like a stream of consciousness that is beyond us, or something that people are kind of sticking a snorkel in, or something of that nature, and tap the magic, those ancestors, that they're all inside of you. That's where the true magic. That's why so many people are so confused, and they head off. So many of our people, they head off into these other people's biospiritual expressions, whether it's religious practices or martial arts practices, and they try to tap in, and they think they're going to find themselves in these places. They travel to their locales, they celebrate their holidays, and they think they're going to find something special. And then you end up in the United States and across Europe with these weird cults that are celebrating these foreign people's biospiritual expressions, just this or that. and they never tap into anything. They do end up in a lot of very bizarre scenarios, and then these groups fall apart when the leaders are bilking the assemblage of duped whites for their belongings and the like. But they never find themselves, and that's what's so powerful about what we're doing, and where we're shifting the focus. Why the anti-white regime, the oligarchs, they don't like people like Frody and Jared and myself, because we are redirecting that vision toward the source of our greatness, toward the source of our power, the reason why we had so many magnificent heroes throughout history. But I don't know if either of you wanted to comment on that. I know we got Frody for just a couple more minutes, and like to give him the final thoughts before he goes.
Yeah, I can say something about that. It was actually a funny article that came out in Sweden just at the start of this week, just a couple of days ago. It's the Defense Research Institute. I don't know really how to translate it, but basically it's a part of the military. It's a research arm of the Swedish military. And they did a study where they researched, they are worried that beautiful landscape images will ignite fascist ideas in people. That is basically they want us all to be big city bugmen. And there is a sense in which the city drains your power and drains your energy. If I could suggest one thing to everyone listening, in these times of social distancing, etc., if you could just spend one weekend, if you could get for a weekend, rent a cabin or something out in nature. The best is if it doesn't have electricity. So you just have to heat it with fire and just be there alone, maybe with a friend or a loved one, whatever, but just get away from the city, get out into the nature. If it's cold, snowy, all the better. I've had some of my best experiences when I've been in nature alone, just because you have to do it for an extended period of time, not just a couple of hours. You have to be away for at least a night or two. That awakens a certain consciousness in you, and it's sort of, you're able to tap into something primordial and genuine, and you're able to feel what it means to be human. So I mean, that is something that is, we get less and less of that in modern society, but I think people should try to seek that out, those kinds of experiences, because that sort of reveals to you what is really important in life, gives you a chance to contemplate. And the winter is best experienced close to nature. So that's my suggestion.
All right. Well, thank you, Frody. Jason, I think we have our next guest lined up. Is that true? Is that right?
We do indeed. Any final thought? Any final thought, Frody, before we let you go, and wish you a very Merry Christmas and a magical night over the course of this winter?
Yes. Well, no, I just want to thank you guys. You've always been generous with inviting me, and I've always enjoyed being on your show. Tomorrow, on Christmas Eve, I'm going to be on Millennial, so anyone who wants to listen to my rants there can tune in. So, no, I mean, let's stay in touch. I'm going to do something on New Year's Eve, and if you guys are available, I'd like to have you on there as well, but I'll send you guys a message about that afterwards. But thank you so much for having me on, and a Merry Christmas to you, a Happy Yule, and I'm sure you'll have a great rest of the show.
Thank you so much. Enjoy this time, Frody. Best to your family. Good Yule, and we'll speak soon.
Indeed. All right, bye-bye. Everybody follow Frody on all of his different platforms. Magnificent gentleman. And now we have the very one and only Clarion Wakefield is with us, ladies and gentlemen. Good Yule. Merry Christmas to you, sweet lady. How are you?
Merry Christmas to you guys. I'm great.
Welcome.
I was really enjoying Frody's conversation there about folk traditions. It was really nice to be able to tune in early and hear all that.
Well, how are you doing this very Merry Christmas?
We are doing really well. I've been thinking about, well, just everybody. I mean, our family and all the other families in our folk, with COVID, and how that has changed everybody's Christmas. So we've been under that a little bit, not like our family in England. The tier 4 can't go anywhere. So our state here in the United States is pretty lax. And then our family, personally, we've had a big transition. I told you that we've been trying to find a new place to live and to sell our house and move to a farm, and we're in the process of doing that. And right now that means that our house is sold and we're under contract to buy a farm, and we've been living in an RV for several months. So we're living in an RV with no Christmas tree, no Christmas decorations. So it's been a very different Christmas for us, but a really good Christmas too.
It's a year of transition, but the main thing for you is you're going towards something you want to do. So that's huge.
Yeah, and, it's exciting.
Congratulations to you and your family for making that move. You
Thank
mentioned you were Sarah Dye, another homeschooling mom, is in the chat, and she's saying congratulations to you. She's Hearth and Helm LLC there.
Oh yeah, I love her and all that she's done for our people and her courage. So hello, Sarah.
Yeah, we should get the two of you. You've never spoken before?
No, we haven't.
We got to get the two of you on together.
Yeah, that'd be great. She can give me all the ways and means of growing our own food.
Yeah, look at I'm grinning like a fool. I can't get this smile off my face, Jason. Just everyone gathering, having this fellowship, checking in with all of our different people from around the world. So Claren, you mentioned you were taken by listening to Frody talk about folk traditions. I know this year is a little different for your family, but in general, what are some of the traditions at this time of year that mean something to you and that you're passing on?
Well, I will say this is something that our family does, but I wanted to share it with everybody in the community because it's something everybody can do. It's on YouTube, and it's something that we do every year. And I was thinking about it when Frody was talking. There's I don't know. Do y'all familiar with the Rick Steves Europe on PBS?
Yes. It's funny. I mentioned it. Sometimes I know he throws in a little progressive anti-white stuff here and there, but it is cozy. I do like the shows, and I actually got my parents this mini. It's not big. It's a paperback, but this mini coffee table book, and I was happy to see they put it out when I visited a couple weeks ago. That is Rick Steves' European Christmas. It's all these chapters from Christmas traditions from all around Europe.
There is on YouTube. He has Rick Steves' European Christmas. It's like a 1-hour YouTube show. Or excuse me, it's not a YouTube show. It's a PBS show, but I'm just saying that everybody who's listening has YouTube. And they can watch it there. And it's Rick Steves' European Christmas. It's an hour, and he goes to different European countries and tracks back the traditions that each country kind of celebrates or what they're known for celebrating, and shows it. And it's so charming. And we watch it every year. And we just watched it last night while we were stringing. I don't know. I would like to know if this is something that probably it wasn't a European thing because it involves popcorn, but the stringing popcorn and cranberries to put out for the birds. We were doing that last night and making cinnamon and apple ornaments. And we were watching that, and it was just so charming. And I thought, everybody needs to be able to see this European Christmas. So that's actually a tradition that we started with our family, watching that. I want to say maybe it was like 5 years ago, and we look forward to it. It's one of the Christmas movies that we watch every year. Yeah. So I really, I know that we bring back, when you were talking about maybe making a rhythmic calendar for the year, we do that through the European Christian liturgical calendar. So the European Christianity, which, as we know, is different than how other people are Christian. And we do about it ends up being about every 6 weeks. We have a traditional feast and story and activities and all of that we do throughout the year. And it's special, and it's something that we invite other people to come and participate with us. And so Christmas is a big one now. It's a big holiday. So
are you able to glean the spirit even under the commercial stuff like we were talking about before, or things that are trying to sell you something? Like, could you walk through a mall, and even though we don't really like malls, still there's something about seeing Christmas displays that you still kind of get in the mood? Are you able to do that?
I don't go to the mall.
Just as an example,
ever for years, but
good for you.
We make a lot of our Christmas presents, and we go and we see Christmas light displays every year. That's something that really is a really Christmassy thing. Again, it goes with what you guys were talking about, being out at night, and the night of winter. And it's really a magical time. So we have a lot of traditions that we do every year. Some of them have been canceled for COVID. Something that anybody can do, if you have a Swedish club in your area, which interestingly a lot of places do. We don't live in a particularly Swedish heavy immigrant area, but we have a Swedish club here, and they every year put on a St. Lucia pageant, which you'll learn about when you watch Rick Steves' European Christmas. And it's at night, and it has candles and beautiful singing, and young girls in robes with candles. It's just beautiful.
I love the candle wreath in their hair.
Yes, it's gorgeous. So we didn't do that this year. It was canceled for COVID, but we usually do that every year. And
what breaks my heart? The Christmas markets in Europe probably aren't open, and that is so charming.
Yeah, when you guys were saying earlier that we're people that kind of we remember the bitter with the sweet. I can't remember how you phrased it, but watching, like, for instance, last night watching the European Christmas, thinking about the Christmas markets and that they're just not safe places for our people anymore, because of what we have permitted, what we've permitted in our homeland. So I think we're all going to have to be pushing back. I think in 2021, I think everybody's going to be at a Christmas market, and it's going to be safe, and there's not going to be any lockdowns, and we're going to have. I foresee victory in 2021.
I do too, actually.
I'm curious, Clarion, since you are a mother and you are a homeschooler, how do you see children holding up under the COVID-19 pandemic and not able to celebrate Christmas as usual? Also, these changes in our civilization and these anti-white changes that you're referencing. How do you see children holding up during Christmas? Are they holding up? And how might you recommend for mothers and fathers out there to address the stressors that these children are experiencing during this Christmas season?
I think that making sure. Okay, what became clear to me through our own family through Christmas, the Christmas season started, and it was like, for our personal family, we didn't have any of the accoutrement to pull out, right? We didn't have the Christmas decorations and the Christmas cookie cutters and all the things that we do. It's all in storage. And we didn't have the things like going to church for the special events and going to St. Lucia night and all of that. And it really became clear to me as we kind of looked around that it was our family traditions that have been born within our family, but also influenced from our people and from my personal family and my husband's personal family, our traditions, that the strength of that has carried us through. I thought that it was going to be, I thought it was going to be harder maybe to be like Christmassy, if you will, this year. But it was the smaller Christmas traditions that I realized that don't rely on all of that other stuff that really anchors our family. And because of that, it just didn't change a lot. And I started really thinking about children having the strength of that familial cocoon that nothing really gets in to our family. I mean, it does, don't get me wrong. Like it seeps in, and we have to kind of keep checking in with the adults and the children in the family, to make sure that everybody is being nurtured in the way that they need to be nurtured in that moment. But I think that if families really focus on creating a cocoon for their family, which even if the world isn't going mad outside, it's your family should still be a cocoon. Even more so when you've got the oligarchy and doing all the things that they're doing to us and have been doing to us for years. So I think that children who are part of a family that have not spent a lot of time building a really warm and solid core for their family, that those children are probably suffering a lot more than children and families like we're blessed to have.
Well said.
So yeah.
Well said. That was my experience thinking back to being a kid too. And it'll come back to you because your kids will remember it and they'll keep it going. But that's exactly, I can relate to that very much so.
One of the things that for people, especially with younger kids, I mean, we've developed traditions even as our children have gotten older, organically. They've just become something that we've done every year. I mean, that's really what the traditions that are not the external folk traditions, and now we sing this song and now we go to this event and all of that. They do happen organically. But one of the things that I did do that I repurchased, like I didn't go and buy like all new like Christmas decorations and whatever. But one of the things that I did repurchase is we have these 3 storybooks that we read, and we've read them since the girls were like really, really little. They're children's beautifully written, beautifully illustrated children's storybooks that we read every Christmas season. And I repurchased all 3 of them so that we can continue that. So that is something that is a material that supports the spiritual. So we do things like that. We read the same stories every Christmas. We bake the same cookies every Christmas. We celebrate by candlelight each night of December as it gets closer to Christmas. We light one more candle in a series of 25 candles that we have, and we read a Bible passage. We say a prayer. We sing the hymns of our people that have been being sung for hundreds of years. And it's really interesting too, in Rick Steves' Europe, I realized how much the Latin hymns matter, because when we're watching Rick Steves' Europe and we're watching people who speak French sing a hymn in Latin, and we know the same hymn because we also sing it in Latin, that's a really binding experience, that song, through the Christmas season. We're a big musical family. So we do that. Yeah.
Could you share any of the books as recommendations for other parents out there that you go back to every year?
The 3 books that we love, and they're not actually, well, I guess they are. Two are specifically Christmas. One is called Boxes for Katja, which is Katje, Boxes for Katja. It's a beautiful book. It is biographical book. I think, yeah, it's a biographical book about the author's mother. And Katja is a Dutch girl. The illustrations are amazing. Katja is a Dutch girl after World War II who becomes pen pals with an American girl. And the American town that she's from ends up supporting through boxes of charitable goods through the winter, the coldest winter on record in Holland after the war was over. And it's this beautiful story about children helping children, and Europeans in America helping Europeans in the homeland. There
Imagine
is
that. What do you know when it was written?
You know what? I don't, and I don't have it handy. It's not an old book. It's not an old book. I mean, it, you know, maybe 20 years old, but it isn't a vintage book. And it is very, yeah, it's fantastic. Boxes for Katja. There is another one that we read, which is called A New Coat for Anna. Also, any book that we read, my children, I'll have a side note here and plug this. My children were both considered late readers, although both of them are, well, you know, they have, you know, they read at an educated adult capacity now, but they were both late readers. And one of the reasons that they were late readers was because they just refused to read garbage, you know, like the hat and the mat and the cat, and it's just like a bunch of rhyming garbage that doesn't mean anything. Because I had spent all of their pre-verbal years and their toddler years and their preschool years reading them beautiful literature, and they just weren't interested in reading about cats and hats and mats. But
that's
anyway,
fascinating.
So any children's book that I recommend is beautifully illustrated, beautifully written, with a story which is either engages your heart or your humor or your curiosity. So another book that we've ended up reading every Christmas is called A New Coat for Anna. It's autobiographical, and it's written about a little girl who was living in Germany after the war, after World War II, and the devastation that had been wrought there against our people and the economy, and her needing a new coat and spending the year, her mother spends a year bartering things that they have with people who have sheep and a loom and a tailor to get a new coat for Anna at the end of the year. That's a great book. And again, a community book. And then a book called Lucy's Christmas, which is biographical about the author's mother living in like I think 1901 in the far northeast. I want to say it's in Vermont, and her little one-room school and her small town church, and what they do for Christmas, leading up to Christmas and then Christmas Day. And it's a very interesting. The illustrations are beautiful. They're very interesting. A style of steel plate etching that is it's a little strange, but I really like it. But it's a beautiful story. It's very engaging, and we read those 3 every year. Lucy's Christmas, Boxes for Katja, A New Coat for Anna.
Thank you for those suggestions. Jason, were you saying something, or do you have a question?
I was going to say that, yeah, it seems like the children, in what Clarion is providing to her lovely children, is that sort of this year they see, if I could, it's for children, it seems like there are tractor beams and laser beams. The laser beams are the challenges that are going to be knocking down children who don't have, our white children who don't have any sort of supports. They're completely wedded to the materialism of the anti-white orthodoxy that is forced upon us. And as these vapid, just absolutely insipid supports are yanked out from underneath of them with the terror of a pandemic, and you try to imagine what that is like for a child. There's so many adults, they can't even, they don't have the maturity, the emotional maturity to understand what's taking place with COVID-19, and they melt down. I see it all the time over on the PWR audience. Every time I try to talk about the COVID-19 with any sort of nuance, these people just start screaming like children, neoteny following them all the way up into their adulthood. So imagine how difficult it is for a child when you have these so-called like Faucis out there saying the things that they are saying, and we can't get a clear look. And then you have other children, since these vapid support structures are yanked out from underneath of so many this Christmas season. There are these tractor beams of wholesomeness where they can be drawn back into things that seem, because they don't have the fireworks and the explosions and all of the high dollar marketing behind them, they seem like they're smaller and less significant, when in reality, they are far more salubrious for the spirit. We all have had the experience of speaking to our elders, and both, grandparents, great grandparents, and some of us even our parents, and they have stories from their Christmases. And so this shows you how recent this transformation has been. It's like the population in the United States, 90+% up till 1965, or when a law was passed. And then what was it, the 80s, before you started seeing significant percentages of different biospirits in the United States, 90s, significant percentages, and already such radical change to our homeland, already such radical change to our environment, so that we feel alien inside of them. But we've all had these experiences where we hear these stories and we marvel. We think, it seems like so little. You had so little. You did so. Where were all the fireworks? Where were, the trees that could not only light up but dance around the room on command with a remote control? Where were all of these things that we have today? It seems like it's so simple. And it strikes me, and maybe, I'll pass it over to Clarion to get her thoughts on this as we're winding down on our time with her. But if I could connect it to just listening to Jared George's premiere of Far Away, it's like we've gotten away from the music at its purest form. And now you have a band that will get up on stage, and there are laser light shows, and they come swinging out of the ceiling, and there's smoke and explosions and sparks and all kind of electronic equipment to convince us that what we're hearing is something good or something spectacular, really just inundating our senses, so that we can't make a genuine assessment, and we come away from there as empty as we left. Whereas if we had been with the purest of tunes, we would have gathered something that would have informed and empowered our lives, enriched our lives for the totality of our lives. And it seems like our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, they had that, and now that's all gone for us. And possibly here, with such radical changes to our environment by the anti-whites and anti-whiteism, and now, of course, COVID-19, and anti-whites doing all they can to take advantage of COVID-19 as an opportunity to advance anti-whiteism. There's an opportunity for some children to be taken up by tractor beams of wholesomeness and given something valuable again. Clarion, what your thoughts on that?
I think that although COVID-19 has been used to bring a lot of, well, I wouldn't say sorrow, just a lot of burden on our people. That's for certain. That I think that there is an amazing opportunity, and I know that we have moved into the opportunity. I've seen so many other families move into opportunities that it has provided, that the new structure of the world has provided, and that is looking around and just kind of having it be clarified for people, like that family and folk are it. That as people have gotten, maybe what you were saying about the laser beams, like some people, I'm sure, I personally don't know anybody like this, but I'm sure that there are people who, you know, just essentially fell apart as soon as their like children's like 27 different extracurricular activities were canceled, and they didn't know what to do because and then they like couldn't go out, you know, and eat every meal. And then it was just like they kind of were just all at home. I'm sure that that was a very discombobulating experience for some people, but for the families that I know, even families who were kind of not that knitted together really before COVID, with COVID came a knitting together that I am finding. I mean, we're going on like almost a year now, right? Like I'm finding that so many people are remarking and observing in their own lives that it has brought that wholesomeness back to their family, that they are focused on their family, they're focused on eating healthy foods as a family, because they have the time to do that, and um, not having 10,000 distractions because things are just, you know, there's just not as much going on. So they're coming together and they're doing more things like playing board games and reading books aloud. I mean, my children are now both teenagers. My husband's reading Tale of Two Cities aloud to the family now. Like it used to be, you know, that he was like, he read like all of the Harry Potter series to the family, you know, when when the children were of an age for that, and now they're older. So, you know, but it doesn't mean that now they're older, so now they all, you know, scurry off to 10,000 activities, right? It's still a time of family every night here, but now instead of Harry Potter, and before Harry Potter, it was Lucy's Christmas, or it was just a storybook each night. But it evolves, being the wholesome tractor beam evolves as the family evolves. But I think that COVID has really brought that wholesome tractor beam to a lot of families who didn't know that they had been robbed of the wholesome tractor beam, and now are relishing coming together as a family because they came together as a family because they didn't really have any other options since everything was canceled. But now they're just like, you know, wow, where's this been all of our lives? I wish that we had this our whole family's life. So I think it's been great for a lot of people. I know a lot of people, there's been hardships. I mean, and we've had hardships too, but we just focus on the things which have been amazing opportunities.
Yeah, this is you're talking about opportunities, and this is what we talk about all the time in service to white well-being and going free. The practice of going free is that we have this continues to be a debate for some reason, even though I've already I resolved this issue for so many. The struggle in the West is not one of the about to lose power. Is not one of where we are on the verge of falling from the top of some steeple. The anti-whites have won. It's been a long time since they have won. No one alive today was alive when the Western kind controlled our destiny. That's how long the anti-whites have been in charge. That's how long they've been dismantling everything that we have created. And this is the continuance of Western norms, traditions, culture, etc., is an artifact of two things. Of course, inertia. It has its momentum, and it's going to continue for a time. And also our continued but radically dwindling presence and influence over the countries and cultures that once we controlled. And we talk here about what is the practice of going free. How do we reclaim our destiny? Well, it is a practice wherein we are empowering ourselves, like we were talking about with Frody, to tie these two wonderful guests together. Looking inward. Oh, it looks like we lost Clarion, but I'm sure she'll be right back. But looking inward for access to our true selves, our true power, our true potentials and possibilities. at simultaneously bringing our brothers and sisters, the Vagues out there, into the practice of going free, so they too can access it, and we can continue to be the community that we are building here, and then to continue that next step further into the broader community, so that we can reach out to all of our brothers and sisters, all of the Vagues across the West, and bring them into this greater community where we say one people, many countries. The reason why this is so important is because we were defeated with psychological warfare, with words. That's why I did a roll-in the other day about all of these people who are narrow-minded and myopic, who think that and have been trying to say to me, well, your clever words won't help you. Well, it was clever words that defeated you. There was no grand army that
exactly
civilization. So it will be clever words that will rescue you, that will deliver our destiny to us. Now, we are in a position of near powerlessness, and we need to be building our numbers, connectivity, ingenuity, creativity, liquidity, etc., with a program that has demonstrated that it works, so that when we have opportunities like Clarion is talking about right now, an opportunity presented to us by something horrible, a pandemic, maybe made more horrible, however bad it is made more horrible by anti-whites using it to increase their power over Western civilization, their control over our lives. We would have an ability greater than we have today if more people had given themselves over to success instead of thinking that they were smarter than success. We would have a greater ability today to reach more of these families who undoubtedly are suffering. There are families, and you all know this, maybe you're in one of those families. And if you're one of those people who are suffering, like Frody mentioned earlier, because you don't have anybody in your life during this time of year, or you are quarantined because of COVID-19, or as Mr. George was mentioning, that there is this dichotomy of there's this joy and this sadness and everything, that we always have a dichotomy in Western kind, and it's no different here at Christmas time, this simultaneous joy and the sadness. If you are under the pressure of numerous forces, lost your job, getting later and later on your bills and the like, and you're feeling worse, these households, many of them, are at each other's throats. Mm-hmm. They're screaming at each other. Their children are screaming at each other. And for many, regrettably, there will be lesions, psychological lesions, perhaps physical lesions, that will never heal as a consequence of what's happening right now in many people's lives. We need to be thinking about them. And we could be reaching out to a great many more if we had, instead of constantly bickering about should we use this old vehicle or ideology that has failed in the past, or this other ideology or vehicle that has failed, just work with the success that we're having here in the practice to going free. We would have far more influence than we do today, and we would be able to reach so many more families who are suffering as a consequence, and to be able to bring them away. The question really is, and I know this holds true for Jared and Clarion and myself and for many others, is where is your focus? Is your focus on protecting our people from harm, or is your focus on wanting to harm some other group of people? If your focus is on wanting to harm some other group of people, this is not the place for you. We are here to protect those of our kind, Western kind, from experiencing harm. And the most important of those individuals are our vulnerable members, our children, our seniors, and our sick. But we need to be protecting everyone. So, Mr. George, any thoughts you might have had?
Well,
I saw the gears moving in your head as I was speaking there.
I always like you're saying that we're the main characters in our story. Even fooling around, it's like you name your screen name after a stereotypical name of another people, even though it's a joke. To me, that shows that they're in your head. They're in your head too much. Let it go. We know the score, but you're the main character in your own story. Stand up, get a spine. All right? There may be some new people tonight. There's a little bit of dust ups in the chat, a little bit. this material here has brought people back from literally planning their suicide date, okay? Drug abuse and alcohol abuse. Maybe you're having a real tough time and our heart goes out to you. But listen, imbibe in it. This is not a YouTube show where we gossip monger or we rant and rave about other people. It's here for you if you want it. It might be tough. You might have a lot of scars, but give it a chance, all right? And if it's just not the place for you and you want to do that, then you know where the door is. It's that simple. Other than that, Clarion, it was great speaking with you again. I know we spoke holiday time last year, but it was Thanksgiving.
Right.
You gave us a lot of great, well, for me, I know you and Jason have spoken since. I do follow your Telegram, but would love to speak more. We'd love to have you and Sarah on.
Mm-hmm.
I think our next guest is a folklorist, so we'll get more into that. Do we have the Duke of Avalon lined up, Jason?
He's not backstage yet.
Okay, let me message him as we do that.
Okay.
See if Clarion, if you have any thoughts on
Yes.
what's been said, or maybe something light, maybe Christmas movies. Any Christmas movies that are particular favorites?
We have so many Christmas movies. Sometimes I feel like we have to put them on a calendar. Like we're not TV people, you know, like we do watch a lot of YouTube as far as content creation for how to do things. And people who edify our family, like you guys, you know, like we really, that's what we fill our house with, is substance of goodness is what we do. So when it comes to Christmas, we break out the DVD folder, and we watch It's a Wonderful Life on Christmas Day, and A Christmas Story on Christmas Day. Like, you know, like maybe like in the evening or something. We usually watch those two at some point during that day, because that's a day that we just stay home all day. Christmas Day, we don't go anywhere. What else do we watch? We watch Home Alone. That was a fun one for when the kids were little. And Miracle on 34th Street, The Bells of St. Mary. I'm trying to think of which ones we watched, but those are the big ones. And Elf. We laugh a lot at Elf. And a lot of these, you know, it's like that whole thing that we come back to every year, you know, like the first time our family saw Elf, my eldest daughter was 5, and she thought it was the funniest thing that she'd ever seen. And we watch it every year. And so when I see, I mean, we still laugh, but when I see it, it's kind of like, you know, it's more than 10 years now of watching her watch it for me. Like, and I think a lot of Frody was saying, you know, Christmas is kind of for kids. So it's like I've watched my kids grow up watching these movies. So we do it every year, and it's
my
great.
brother and I still quote Elf.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Oh, you must be from the South Pole. You're an angry elf. Yeah.
Yeah. I love how he recants how he walked to New York. It's like, and then I walked through the candy cane forest.
Yeah.
My brother and I was in that too. So I walked through the candy cane forest.
Right. Yeah.
He ends up in Central Park. Yeah, I mean, as far as more modern movies go, it's at least I'd have to go back and watch it now with fresh eyes. I don't know. Maybe there's anti-white messages. Who knows?
You know what? Well,
it seems pretty good.
I still like it every year. So, and Jason and I have talked a lot about different movies. I'm kind of a stickler for, well, maybe not a stickler. I don't know. I just have like zero tolerance for anti-white messaging in movies. I'm just like, I just don't watch them. We don't like, well, going back to what I said, you know, we really try to fill our home with only good things, because you know what? The minute that you step out the door, it's just an onslaught of anti-whiteism. So I don't need that in our home at all. So, but my daughter did come home with a small fallen, it's more than a twig, but less than a branch of a pine tree.
We need a new word for that.
Yeah. My other daughter said, "Buddy cut it down in the park," right? As soon as she walked in for all the elf fans. It's our Christmas tree. It's about 14 inches, and it's sitting in a box. That's our that's our Christmas tree this year. So it's good times. I just really am glad that you guys are doing this. I really enjoyed listening to Frody, and I'm looking forward to people from all over the country, and I'm really looking forward to listening to a folklorist, because that's my eldest daughter's greatest interest is European folklore. So I'm looking forward to that.
This might be perfect then. Well, tell folks where they can find you, and any final thought, and we'll let you get back to your Christmas season with your children.
Just on Telegram, Clarion Wakefield on Telegram, and there's a discussion channel that I love Telegram, but sometimes it's hard to find where the discussion channel is, depending on if you're iPhone or Android or PC or Apple or whatever. But join in the discussion too, which is the most fun. We post more in there because I'm really just more interested in just talking with our community. So, and everybody have a exceptional Merry Christmas, and 2021 is the year for our people. I know it.
Amen to that. Well, we love you. Thank you so much, and we will definitely have you back, and have you back with Sarah. That'll be a magnificent show.
That'd be awesome. You guys have a great rest of your special.
Clarion, Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you so much for being on.
Merry Christmas to you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
All right. Bye-bye, sweet lady. Well, just in time, we have Avalon has joined us. How are you doing, brother? You're muted at the moment, but a big good Yule, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Promethean holiday greetings to you.
Hello, guys. How are you doing?
Oh,
hello.
I'm pretty good, thanks. It's it's great to be on, especially around Christmas time. It's the most comfy time of the year, I think. I know it's quite a lonely time for a lot of people, especially nowadays. But we're going to talk about folklore today, and what I love most of all about Christmas folklore is that it's so positive and looking ahead to the future with merriment and optimism. So it'll be good getting into this.
Yeah, we'll share some of. And by the way, no, Duke was not late. I see what happened to mix up on our end here. So Duke, no worries. You're on time.
I know,
I was wondering where you were, but I saw the first email didn't go through. Mix up on my end. So at any rate, it's been a little while. It's great to speak with you. So why don't we get right into that? What is some of your favorite Christmas folklore that carries that spirit?
Well, I'll start off with my favorite. So there's a lot of superstition surrounding Christmas spirits. So one of them.
Before you go on, I'm sorry. Are you able to raise your volume a little bit? A little bit lower. Maybe sit a little closer.
Yeah, is this a bit better?
Let me see. They might have given me some new powers on this end. I've become more powerful.
You have some new powers, some new Christmas powers, Jason?
Let's see if I have more powers. If I do this, okay, maybe I can. All right, Duke, go ahead and speak.
Is this a bit better? Is this any good?
A little bit. I think we could deal with it. Chat, let us know if we're somewhat even, please.
All right, okay. So one of them is kind of surrounding returning souls. And what I like about this kind of thing is it really does connect people to the ancestors. It really does, when family die, it doesn't just cut them out of the Christmas picture. So one of my favorite traditions that happened for so long is that for many centuries, when people would go out on Christmas Day, or whether they were going out for a walk or going out to church, they would make sure that everything was in order in the house at first. And this is getting everything clean and getting the dinner all set up and nice. And this is because when they were out, many people believed that the spirits of the ancestors, specifically the more recently departed ones, would come and they'd inspect the house to make sure that everything's in good order and just to remember that they're still welcome in this family home. You know, they're not cut out, they're not forgotten. So that's something I read quite recently. That's something I really like. And I read as well that in Irish belief for a long time, they believed that the gates of heaven or the afterlife, the other world, they remained quite open, quite wide at midnight on Christmas Eve, so that souls of anyone who had just died, you know, they could automatically pass through. You know, there was no hell for them. There's a bit more lenience, a bit of slack cut on Christmas Eve, which I quite liked.
What about older iterations of Father Christmas and where that comes from, and the elves?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So if we talk about elves first, so obviously people believe for the most part in elves and fairies and sprites and pixies, and there's many different kinds. So if we look at woodland elves and woodland pixies and fairies first, so they live in the woods. When autumn comes, the leaves fall, and so the elves and the fairies, they move to different trees. You know, they move to the holly trees, they move to yew trees and ivy and this kind of thing. But when Yuletide comes, what do people do? They bring in these trees into their home. They bring in the fir trees, they bring in the holly and the ivy. And so this is why many people believed for so long that around Christmas time there was a truce, because humans and fairies and elves, we don't have that much of a good relationship. You know, there's always kidnappings going on, there's always mischief. But a truce was called in this time because the fairies and the elves knew that they were likely going to be brought into people's homes, and people also knew that they were going to be bringing them into their homes as well. It's not what everyone wants. So that's why a truce was called. And then when it's time to dispose of the Christmas tree, there's a bit of difference in opinion on what to do with that. So some people believed that it was a good idea to completely burn the Christmas tree, completely burn the wreaths, and incinerate anything that remained of the fairies or the elves. And others believed that it was probably better to just leave it outside and let it rot away, which gives the elves and the fairies time to escape and just head back into the forest. And that's quite nice, I think.
What about, I remember researching the Red Ice video I'd mentioned that I did last year, and there was an element too where in the spring and summer, you open your windows, you let the fresh air in, and there's always that element where we want to be connected with nature. Even when we're indoors, we bring nature in. And so you need to put up more of a buffer against the harsh elements and the cold air sometimes of winter. So maybe it's not, your house is not as open as it is in the spring and summer, with breezy and airy, but that there's an instinct in European peoples to bring the outside in, and that's where you get the wreaths and the tree and the holly and the ivy, as you were saying.
Yeah, no, it's oh, what's happened here?
What about mistletoe? I hear that come up a lot as well.
Mistletoe. Yeah, I don't really know that much about mistletoe. It was sacred to the Druids, wasn't it? Am I thinking of something else? Or
yeah, sacred. I do remember that, sacred to the Druids. I know in Norse myth, right? Isn't it the one? Is it the one thing that the dart hits Balder? I'm rusty on that now. That story.
I'm not too sure about Norse myth, to be honest, because there's a big difference between folklore and mythology. So mythology is kind of the stuff that's often built into the old pagan religions and stuff, whereas my focus is more of the small folk beliefs, and many that tend to manifest through the ages. Obviously, it twins in with mythology, but I'm not really too big on my plant lore and stuff like that. But you mentioned Father Christmas or Santa Claus, which is a lot of people think it's the same figure, but it's not really. So Father Christmas, we could probably say that, at least in English tradition, that it stems from early midwinter celebrations. And there's, if we go back to the high Middle Ages, there's almost there's not many sources we can detail for this. But Father Christmas has been a figure for centuries. I know that in the English Civil War, obviously Oliver Cromwell, no fan of Christmas. The Cavaliers, the Royalists, used the imagery of Father Christmas as like a guy that was on our side. He represents the old order, the old traditions.
Mm.
So I read that a few months ago. I thought that was really cool. Obviously, Santa Claus, I think he stems from a few different things. There's the old Saint Nicholas, and there's Odin, I think, as well. A few traditions brought together. But when that kind of took off in America, the traditional Father Christmas figure, who wasn't in England, at first he wasn't associated with presents and gift giving. He was more kind of a jolly figure who think of the Ghost of Christmas Present in Dickens' Christmas Carol. He's like a merry figure that enjoys feasting and times, and he's very symbolic of the season, family values and merriment and all this kind of thing. And then it was when the Santa Claus thing kind of started to become more widely known in America that in England, Father Christmas kind of takes on that role as well as the gift giver, and that's how they fuse together. And for a long time, the name Father Christmas did stick, and it was synonymous with Santa Claus. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't know that they are two different figures initially. And another thing is they think that Coca-Cola invented the red-coated Santa Claus, mm-hmm. which isn't actually true. Father Christmas or Santa Claus, he's always worn a varying degrees of colors. He wears blue, he wears green, he wears red. It's not a Coca-Cola thing. Coca-Cola latched onto it.
Yeah. I do like the old green robes. I know I've seen the older Father Christmas in England. He has that sleek green robe, very, very, very handsome. I might have to get myself one of those when I'm older and I have a big, great beard, white beard. I think the important thing to remember, and yes, there were a couple people in the chat, first of all, who confirmed, sometimes you get like live stream brain and things that if you haven't thought about it in a little while, you're like, wait, before I say this and like it's on public record, like second guessing myself. But yeah, of course, it was mistletoe that killed Bowser. So there's a lot of.
The worst thing about that is that when you remember afterwards and you go back and you're like, people are correcting you in the comments, like, no, it's actually this. And you're thinking, I know that.
Yeah, we're just humans. We make mistakes too. But yeah, I was like, why did I even question myself? Of course I know that. But at any rate, the important thing to remember here, and Survive the Job is, I think, very good at explaining this, is in a lot of these folk traditions and everything that comes with it, sometimes people get very meticulous about details, but we have to remember, like, you have to look to the instinct. We talk about this a lot here, that the spirit behind it, the manifestations are going to change. And, we're dealing with things that have been around for thousands of years. There's been migrations of people. A lot of these were oral traditions. So it's not like there's this one written record of it and we're finding things all the time. Even like what you said about more recent popular culture about like how would historians in a few hundred years from now look back on this with Coca-Cola and Santa Claus? It morphs, it changes, the forms change. I think the real important thing to remember, and that's what I try to leave people with, is that when you kind of like dig through all of it, as if it's an archaeological dig through these layers, but you're going through something that's not physical, it's our psyche, you see the themes come up again and again and again, similar images, like you were saying, the gift giving. Well, maybe Santa Claus being a jolly figure is a little more contemporary, but the old man at Christmas with the white beard and the gift giving and the elves, well, these things go back manifestations and iterations all over Europe. So not only in time, but also connecting all of us together.
Yeah, this is why I think
similar European-wide traditions.
Yeah, this is why I think it's they're all based in truth, really, because it's not just one idea that's manifested somewhere from some people and then spread everywhere else. It's the same ideas that have manifested with, going back so far that the origins are unknown, and they've all taken on their different regional or national characteristics. But, they've all popped up everywhere. It hasn't spread from one specific place. All of Europe has their elves and fairy superstitions and stuff. They haven't spread from one particular area, which is one of the reasons I think that it is based in truth.
Yeah, and our instinct, our biospirit.
Yeah.
What about in the bit we have left with you? What about just personal things, ways that celebrating this time that means something to you, family traditions, anything you're looking forward to this year, anything different this year with the COVID stuff? How about any of that?
Well, on the subject of traditions, I remember when I was a kid outside my house, and this is just a tradition in Scotland and Northern England, and I think the Isle of Man as well. So there's a thing called first footing, and what this is, have you heard of this?
Well, one of my close friends growing up, his mom had come over from Scotland, and so I'm very familiar with it. We'd always spend Christmas Eve at their house, so I'm familiar. But please go ahead.
Yeah, so first footing is basically someone. It should be a man, and it should be someone with darker hair, so brown or black hair. And the origins of this again are unknown, but many people say it's because of the Vikings. So to have someone turn up at your door with blonde hair and probably an axe isn't good luck for the year to come. So someone with a man, and specifically
I had a friend who was Spanish and Italian. He's a little more olive skinned, so he'd always be the one that my friend's Scottish mom would go, "You go outside and you bring the gifts back in." He had a designated friend who was that guy.
Yeah. Well, I've got brown hair, so I'm okay to do it. But what my dad used to make me do is this first footing thing. So someone outside the door at midnight on New Year's Eve, they come and they bring gifts of some description. So this is usually silver or shortbread or coal or some whiskey, and then they're let in by the people in the house. Usually there's some kind of a saying or poem read, something along those lines. And this is, it brings good luck and good fortune for the future. And I remember doing this as a kid, and I found it so embarrassing at the time. And I was like, "Oh, Dad, come on! Someone across the street might see us. It's a bit embarrassing. What do we do? And we're the only ones here doing it." But it's only growing up a little bit that I realized that he was trying to keep this tradition alive. And you understand the importance of that. And it's definitely something that I want to carry on.
I love it. That's great. It like we were talking about with Clarion before. I don't think people realize what you give the structure to the kids, and it really stays with them. You give them something solid footing. They know they're loved. You could get through a lot just with those simple but most important things. And then one more thing that's on my mind, and then Jason, if you have any questions or you have anything from the chat before our next guest, is the length of this, that it's really not just one day. We hear different things about the 12 days of Christmas. Then there's the idea of Yuletide or Yule time. The old Germanic languages, I think in both Norse and Old English, maybe someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the name in at least one of those for December was Yule. It was Yule month, and then January the translation means after Yule. So it even spilled into January. And I know most of us, we keep our trees up well into January. There's still an instinct where kind of Christmas trails into January a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that definitely has changed in the last century is starting Christmas celebrations a lot earlier than usual. So often you'll see shops especially put up decorations and start advertising stuff in November, sometimes even earlier. But for so long, people believe that it was even unlucky to do this stuff before Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve was one of the big starting points for this. Tree didn't go up until Christmas Eve, especially things like mistletoe and holly. Many considered that very bad luck to bring into the house. I've got one, I think it's in here, one story, and yeah, it's from Gloucestershire, about a couple of centuries ago. And a man talks about, it's early December, and I was carrying some fine holly through Chelford, and a group of women in the street commented on the ill luck that would follow my taking it into the house before Christmas Day. So that's just one example of how people really did view this kind of thing as unlucky. But yeah, there is the 12 days of Christmas, so it goes on after that. Mince pies, that's something that I was reading involving this. So if you eat 12 mince pies, one for every day of the 12 days of Christmas, and more importantly, if they're given to you by 12 different people, that is one definite guarantee to ensure good luck for the next year. So there's so many different stories and little superstitions involving the 12 days of Christmas, and it does often vary on region. I don't know that many from elsewhere in Europe. I'd love to look into it more. Like, the reason I do specifically British and sometimes Irish stuff is because there's not that much of it, and so I want to fill that void. But I do spend a lot of my time listening and reading to other European stuff, and I'd love for people all around Europe to start making content that's local and specific to them, so everyone can share in all of this.
That's
a beautiful
splendid.
thing.
Very commendable, and something that we're talking a lot, and that you specialize in this, and you do a magnificent job, and that's talking about these traditions, these things that are in some cases very, very old. Well, there is never a time that is too late to start a tradition. And what might you suggest with your final thoughts here? And we thank you so much for joining us on the show today. What might you suggest for our mothers and fathers who are listening? Traditions they could investigate, or a wonderful story that they could read this time of year to their children, and that they could revisit every single year, becoming a tradition from 2020 moving onward?
Well, I think one of the big things is books. Books are very important, but I think it's definitely worthwhile investing in a good quality book, and not one that's just printed cheaply in Taiwan or something like that. A real good book that you can pass down to family. And I know things like The Night Before Christmas, that's a really popular one that parents love to read their children. A Christmas Carol is another kind of good storybook. But one thing that I would really recommend to you, now I'm not a parent, but it's something that I think families and friends should do around this time, is the tradition of ghost storytelling on Christmas Eve. And this was so popular for so long, but it's just completely died out now. So people would gather together around the fire, candles lit on Christmas Eve, and they tell ghost stories to each other. And I don't really know the origins of that. It's just a tradition. And the thing about tradition is sometimes you can't explain why it's a thing. People try and rationalize it and say, like, just deconstruct it all, like why. But sometimes there is no answer for that. There doesn't need to be a why. It just is. And sometimes they may say that these traditions are stupid, but their reasons for stopping them are more stupid. They've always been a thing. Let's continue making them be a thing. So yeah, I think ghost story. If you want a Christmas tradition, I think get a good ghost story book. Good book of ghost stories. That's actually something, I'm not trying to plug this, but I'm working on a ghost story book at the minute. But hopefully I'd love to get that out in the future, in the next couple of years. But
we'll have to talk to you when it comes out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've always wanted to publish a book, but ghost stories, I think, a great idea for Christmas Eve.
Well, yeah, if you listen to even recent Christmas carols of maybe the mid last century, they're still mentioning ghost stories. So it was going on until quite recently. And from what I know, I'm trying to piece again together different things coming to me as you're saying it. Obviously, the connection to ancestors, it goes with that time of year. Modranit, which was often on Christmas Eve. The Night of the Mothers was specifically about female ancestors. So I think it probably tracks well with that Yule, about you remember those who have gone before you as well.
Yeah, the ancestors aren't gone. They're here and they're a part of us. And like I was mentioning before, that tradition of keeping your house in order, many of them probably will be offended if you forget them this time of year.
Very well said. Well, we're looking forward to this book of yours, and maybe we'll even have you back before you're done with it, as you're maybe in the meat of it, to get some insight into where you are, a little bit of an update. But it's been fantastic having you on, Avalon, and we wish you a very Merry Christmas. Tell folks where they can find you and anything that you've produced and what you're working on next.
Yeah, of course. So you can find my YouTube channel at just Duke of Avalon, all one word, on YouTube. Nearly at 5,000 subs now. So I'm going to be, when I hit that, I'm going to be launching a little competition with some nice prizes to give away, hopefully. So you can find me there, and I'll leave my email and stuff up in the description. So if you want to get in touch, just send me a message over. And tomorrow, which is Christmas Eve, I'll be launching or just posting a ghost story, like I was saying, because it's always a good time for a ghost story, Christmas Eve.
Perfect. Very nice. Yeah, and of course, anyone listening in replay on our sites, all of our guests will have in the post all their links as well.
Well, thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate it. It's been good fun talking to you again, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Great speaking to you again. Everyone look up his past episodes on our site as well if you want to get deeper into the folklore. I have a copy of that's Robin Hood right behind me, that book.
I did notice that.
Yeah, I didn't plan that, but it's always out, that and King Arthur, but tracks perfectly with your interests, so I guess that was appropriate. But yeah, it was great speaking to you. Merry Christmas to you and yours, and we'll speak soon.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye-bye, brother. Well, we thought we were going to be joined by Jeff Winston of the White Art Collective, but it happens to be Santa Claus.
Ho, 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 everybody.
He's wearing his blue. Like, this is
beautiful blue.
Look at the perfect timing. I don't know if you were listening earlier, but Duke of Avalon was saying how not only red and green, but sometimes Santa or Father Christmas has worn blue. It's like you heard the call and you ran out and got the blue. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I just had that great timing, and I dedicated to, so yeah, blue. You know, I like the blue's kind of a cool look, I think.
It's different, yeah. It's very like frosty. It would go well with the snow. Jason, it goes really well with the background too.
It does.
Yeah.
I was thinking the exact same thing. It's perfect.
You know, let me get something here. We were just talking about books, and before I forget, because I don't know if we're going to have a chance for it to come up, but all three gentlemen on the screen that you see now, everybody, was involved in this book right here, Folk. And a lot of you probably heard about it already, but I'm getting a little echo. I don't know if someone's... Yeah, okay. I guess that's good for you. But White People's Press, Tony White People's Press, I worked with him to make this thing a work of art in and of itself. There's paintings on every page. It's a very beautifully printed coffee table book. And 10 activists, content producers from around the Western world. The three gentlemen you happen to see here are American, but we have people from the UK, from continental Europe, from Australia. We're all left to their own devices to answer the question, what does it mean to be a people? And it's something extraordinary. The first couple of runs have already sold out. So it's a little late at this point for a Christmas gift. I know a lot of people did buy them as Christmas gifts, and we appreciate that. But there's all kinds of approaches to that. Jeff here, he had decided to give you a little bit of American folklore and talk about Johnny Appleseed, and through talking about the tradition of Johnny Appleseed, discuss how these traditions have been taken away from us as stories for people to rally around and give them a sense of self, how we're claiming that again. So we're all very proud to have been part of that. Ricardo Duchesne was actually gracious enough to write the foreword. So it's something we're really asking everyone to spread the word about. It was really a labor of love. It was in the making for about a year and a half. It was a big project. So it's whitepeoplepress.com. We'll put the link in the description too, or I'll put in the chat now. But yeah, Jeff, we haven't really even spoken too much about that yet. I know we spoke on Thanksgiving, but I don't even know if the folk book came up at that point. It was just being published at that time. It's only been out about a month. But thank you for your great contribution to that again, my friend.
Well, thank you for being such a huge part of it. And man, I was happy and proud to be part of that. I bought 4 copies of that and gave them out. Well, I haven't given them out yet. I've given one out. And a friend of mine who's kind of a little bit, I mean, he understands things, but he's a little more, he has what he calls a stability bias.
What does that mean to him exactly?
Well, it means that he doesn't want to upset the existing, he doesn't want to rock the boat, basically, you know what I mean? But anyway, so I gave one to him and I was like, hey, because we grew up together, and I figured he would appreciate like the the personal nature of the Johnny Appleseed story, and because he went on the similar trip that I did, that I explained in the piece that I wrote. But I think that I'm still reeling from the folk book, because I just think it's great, and I think a lot of people are going to get that, and it's hard to. I mean, I just think it's some of the best optics we could possibly have, and the fact that it's tangible, it's this beautiful book that you can have, and you can put it in a library, you can put it on your coffee table. I think it's going to be around for a long time, and it's just it's a great expression of our collaboration too. That means a lot to me, with working with the White Art Collective, to see all these people come together and put something together so nice and just high quality.
Yeah, we're all just thrilled about it. And for anyone who's not aware, so the folk doesn't necessarily mean folklore. Jeff's piece does focus a little more on folklore, but there's all kinds of things. There's kind of big picture essays, like John Bruce Leonard gives a very big picture essay. Laura Towler specifically talks about what it means to be from Yorkshire. I'm sure most of you know, well, if you're familiar with her, that she's very proud to be from Yorkshire, her home county in the northeast of England. I actually wrote a short story, so I set it in the near future and kind of give you a glimpse of a possible better tomorrow, told through the eyes of a young brother and sister too. So that was also a device to show that if an adult now is reading it and, like your friend, is like a little on the fence about things, I kind of turn up the emotional screws at the end as they look back on the time we're in now. So I don't specify exactly how far in the future is, but if you can guess maybe 100, 150 years in the future, let's say, I want people to be absolutely ashamed and embarrassed that they didn't stand up. So maybe your friend will read my piece and maybe it'll do that. I was going for that. And then Jason, tell us about, you actually opened the book, you set the table. So tell us what your intention was with that. And then we'll start to talk to Jeff about Christmas traditions and that good stuff.
Well, maybe I don't know if I should maybe just read a bit of the very beginning of what I wrote. Let's jump by. And it was essentially just overarching discussion of the subject itself. And let's see. Should be able to find this. But I was surprised to see on the bottom of the backstage there that the Santa Claus in royal blue had joined us. That was magnificent. And so happy. What does it mean to be a people? The question put before us in this book is, what does it mean to be a people? Many authors are contributing to this work, and you will undoubtedly find a great deal of profound information in their manifold musings. Some will discuss historical musings. A few will discuss cultural meanings. Others might discuss spiritual meaning, and still others will likely broach socio-political meanings. I'm going to use my time in this essay to discuss what it means to be a people as a crossroads between that question and your duty as an individual member of a people. Even though it should go without saying that a people is composed of individuals, it is necessary to state the obvious as we explore the individual's duty relative to his or her people. The intersection of individual and people is where we find that the duty to a people is the duty to oneself. And so that is where we begin the discussion there. And I think so many people did a magnificent job in this. It's sort of like the petals on a beautiful rose, all in their individuality, speaking to the same thing, having the same source, and yet having an individual fingerprint nonetheless. And truly poetic throughout the totality of it. If you don't own it yet, you must acquire it as your first opportunity, because it is a brilliant work and we're very proud of it and very proud of everybody who participated. Jared, you were going to say something.
Before we get to Christmas, I just have to say one quick thing. Now, Jason and I, of course, did not know what the other was going to write, but you reminded me in your opening there, which again perfectly sets the table for the whole book, exactly what you said at the end about serving your people and then it serves yourself. In my story at the end, again, it focuses on a brother and sister about 14 and 10 years old, and the brother's the older one. He gives his little sister a locket She opens the locket, and inside is a message. I won't tell you what it is. You'll have to go read the book. But it indicates in a quick line that's engraved inside the locket exactly the sentiment that you were just expressing. So you see how there's echoes among all of the ways that we think as well, even though we were left to our own devices to do it. So yeah, again, we're celebrating that. It's another great thing to celebrate about this year. We know it's been a tough year, but there have been triumphs and beautiful things going on. And I'm happy to say that was one of them. But Jeff, what has your year been like? How are you wrapping it up in as much of a positive way as you can? And what's new about this Christmas? What are Christmas traditions that are perennial in your family that you're going to be continuing, even though things are a little different this year with 2020? Take it away, wherever you want to go with that.
Well, I think in general, I know it's been a crazy year in general, but I think from my perspective, things are progressing nicely in the awareness, people becoming aware of what's really going on. And I think the cultural realm of the white positive sphere is developing very nicely. The folk book is a prime example of that. The spooky short film contest and the expansion on that. We just did the memeing of a white Christmas, volume 3, and we expanded that to all artists, all different types of artists. So there's like multimedia. So that was really great. And just in general,
your own book with White People Press.
Oh yeah, the How to Organize a Traditional Dance. That's also out there, and Jared helped me shape that, as well as Liv from White Date Net and John Young and Josh Neal and some other folks gave me input on that. And there's a hardcover of that now available from White People's Press. So I'm excited about that. That's something, organizing those kind of IRL events is something that we're going to be doing into 2021. We got to figure out how to get around this whole plague situation, and then we can get more IRL oriented. But and all of those things coming around, and so many others, and so many more people coming into the white positive sphere, into the white art collective this year. I don't know how many artists. We were actually just talking about it earlier, but I know it's a lot, and things are growing exponentially, and we're working on a new website, which is going to be huge. Like, we got the project section where people will be able to go in and actually do file sharing and have like chats within the site. That's going to be very cool. Mm-hmm. But as far as how I'm spending the Christmas, with family, a little bit downscaled. I'm excited because I did get my niece and nephew. I got them a little guitar and a little drum set. Mm-hmm. And the drum set was on back order for a couple of weeks, but I called earlier this week and was able to make it happen. And I got the drum set and got it put together. And that's exciting as far as just traditions of, passing down music. And I mean, they're still pretty young, but it's a little drum set, but it's cool. It's like, it's actually, it's a legit drum set. It's just a kid's version. And I'm excited about that. And speaking of that, so Christmas traditions, on Conversations with the Wind on Sunday, we were talking about some of these, and it took me a minute to think of some. But so when I was a kid, we used to have our Christmas. We would open like our Christmas presents on the 24th, like the morning of the 24th. So then we could go over to my grandparents, both my mom and my dad's side. And on my dad's side, we would go to midnight mass. And we would like stop playing with all our presents and everything to go to midnight mass. But it was always kind of nice because my grandpa, he liked to go early because they would have music. Like they had music like for an hour before mass started. And I always just thought that was really cool. Mm-hmm. I love Catholic churches have the best acoustics, and, like the big pipe organ and everything. So that was always great.
Did your church do the thing where everyone lights a candle? One candle's lit, and then everyone passes to the next. It's like everyone in your pew, like the person next to you lights your candle, and then you light the person next to yours. I know a lot of Episcopal and Catholic churches do that midnight mass.
I've seen that done. I've seen that done. Yeah. I think, I mean, they did that, or they do like different things with like the candles during the ceremony. But yeah, all that, it's, they always bring out like the really high level ceremony for like the midnight mass, and it's always very beautiful, and the music is beautiful. But that's something I remember, as a kid. That's a very nice memory of my grandfather on my dad's side. That he's actually where I got my musical talent from, most likely. He was actually he was a self-taught. He played like guitar and piano, and he played in a band with his brother who played a banjo. A band, they were in a band called the Rail Splitters. So
Cool.
yeah,
That's such a Midwestern name.
I know, right?
It's perfect.
And speaking of that, actually, another one of our traditions is that we would always, every Christmas, and this was on my dad's side too, we would go out and like shoot guns, like for Christmas. Usually, like go shoot skeet. There's this like creek we would go down to, like this special spot we always went to, and shoot skeet, shoot bottles and cans and everything like that. Obviously, if somebody got a new gun, we would get to try it out. But that was just something that we always did, just a thing that we always did. But yeah, and other than that, I think that's about it.
What about trimming the tree? When would you trim the tree?
We didn't have a particular time for that, In the early days, we still got the real trees. I mean, I prefer the real tree. I know they're a huge pain, but everyone's like,
it's the scent, the pine scent. You can't beat it.
I know, right? And there's just something about it. And the fake tree, I know it's easier and everything, but we didn't really have a particular tradition about that. I don't think we ever had like the particular time or anything. But of course, it was always exciting just to get the tree out and to get to be part of that. It's it's always a thing when you're a kid. Like the putting up of the tree was a big deal. The getting to decorate it, and be and there's a lot of great ornaments. This is something we were talking about on conversations too, is that, a lot of people have like family ornaments, like that I had, there's many that have been made like by family members and things. And so it's always great to go and see those. And some of them are, decades old. And I didn't actually participate in the decoration of the tree this year, because you know how it is, how busy, but I need to go over and look at all the ornaments.
running things.
Yeah, right. That's what you get to do when you're a kid, is you get to pay attention to that. Now I'm like,
I should mention too, because there's so many projects from Tony, the White People Press, and it relates to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show with Frody. They also did a beautiful calendar.
Yeah, I need to get my hands on some of those.
Me too. Yeah.
I know they've got one for art and architecture, right? There's like two different series I think they got going on there.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, that publisher that did the folk book and Jeff's Hideout Organizer Traditional Dance and is doing more now, the folk book really kicked off the direction Tony wanted to go in anyway, which is luxury publishing. And to our knowledge, at least in the Anglophone world, no one has been really doing that. Again, at least to our knowledge, at least in recent years, that there's been this kind of material in what's essentially coffee table books, where there's glossy pages and rich visual presentation. It's not just a paperback. It's not just reading fiction or nonfiction paperback. So we already have some publishers that do that. Tony at White People's Press is going in this luxury publishing direction. So you're going to see anything rich visual presentation. They've done a couple of children's books too. He collected 50 Tales for Western Children. So those were all, public domain. He collected public domain stories, so there's no copyright issues, and put 50 classic tales for Western children. Another great thing for kids, any parents listening or anyone with children in their family. There's a new original one, Spencer Quinn. He's a counter-currents writer, teamed up with an illustrator. They have one called My Mirror Tells a Story, another children's book. So many beautiful things going on. Jason, since Jeff was just talking about it, any particular Christmas traditions or things that stick out, activities that stick out now or growing up that are near and dear to you?
Yeah, absolutely. One that I'll definitely gladly mention that I miss because I didn't make a family of my own, was when I was a child, every Christmas Eve, we would go out late at night, the whole family, we would pile into the car. And even though my father would still do construction, so he still had to work, but he would be a little bit irascible, and by the end of the night there, and but we would nonetheless get out in the car and we would drive around. We would look at the lights at people's houses, and we would try to find particularly the neighborhoods where the people had more money, because very often they had better displays, more lights up on their house, more glamour. And that was just a fantastic memory as a child, because it was always, we were talking about the long nights earlier. I would stand outside and on the porch and wait in the cold. And we always had the lights when I was a child were always, it was red and blue. So we had this solidarity with law enforcement long before there was a solidarity with law enforcement. And
always a step ahead, Jason. Always a step ahead.
Yes, and I just I have these fantastic memories of standing out there and siblings coming and going, and I would just standing in the glow of that light, looking up at the night sky, the stars, and waiting for the moment that my father would get home and we could head on out to see the lights, and contemplating things. One of the things is, how the heck does Santa get around to all of these houses in the course of a night? And each year that thought process becoming a little bit more complicated, and trying to figure it out. But it was always a fantastic memory, because by the time we got home from looking at all the beautiful lights, and of course being pinned against the windows in the car and leaving smears all over the insides, which was just wonderful for my parents, it was time to go to bed. And we knew that that meant that in no time at all, we were going to be opening our eyes, and there was going to be this moment we got to come out to the Christmas tree, and the presents would be there, and everybody had their like appointed spot to be.
Yes.
Yeah, and with our gifts, and then of course having family come over. The younger I was, the more family we had, distant family. We really fill a house. And so the smells of all of the different types of the foods that were being cooked, and the gaiety, merrymaking, it was absolutely just an entire package that was so marvelous. And it was so Western. And, when I was, this area, Northern Virginia, it was multiracial even then, but nowhere near the way it is now. And so there's a very different vibe here in Northern Virginia now than there was when I was a child. I mean, you have a lot of people from subcontinent of India here, and they have their holiday going on with their festival of lights and things, and and then of course we have the decorations for the Chinese that go. It's become very different. It's not the same at all. I feel quite alien, like out of place here now. But it was a truly remarkable time, and would love to be able to go back one day. And this is something I want to say before we're getting closer to tapping out, folks. And we're going to ask Jared George the exact same question that he posed to Jeff and I. But one thing I'll say is that, and this has served me well, and I fail at heeding my own advice here, and I do better. So it's something we can all just improve on. If you're not already, maybe you're doing it better than I am. Probably are. But there are people in our lives, friends and family, that we love and care deeply about. And they do things that annoy us. And maybe sometimes, especially when they get older, they tell you stories that they've told 10,000 times before, and you have to hear that story all over again. I'm going to recommend that the next time they tell that story, and every time moving forward, that you listen to it with the interest you would give a stranger telling you the story for the very first time. And the reason why is because at some point in the future, there isn't anything you wouldn't fail to give, just to hear that story one more time, because they'll be gone. So make use of the time that you are with those people that you love, your friends and family. Give them your thoughts and attention when they tell you those old stories or where they're crotchety, and give them that space, because there definitely will come a day when you'll give anything in the world to have them be a little rude again, or have them tell you that lame story one more time. Mr. George, same question to you, something from your history, something that's really memorable. We'll get some final thoughts from Santa Claus here. And by the way, folks, I want to say, but just so there's no forgetting here, while Jared thanks for a moment, and that is that, somebody who has a really great spirit, a really great soul, is the kind of person who can organize people who are inherently difficult to organize, people who are like cats on fire and bath salts. And those are artists. And that person is Jeff Winston. So, he's it's.
Is that true, Jared? Is that how artists are?
Yes. I was raising my hand not because I was taking credit. I knew he was about to say you've been organizing artists through the White Art Collective. Yes. But I'm an artist and I know what it can be like. But I joined Jeff in fully claiming all of our Western genes and bringing them all, activating all of them, and being artists who can also be organizational types. But I've suffered through it too. It's remarkable to work with people now, even informally, even just like little bits of help in our thing, who have so much more agency and do show up often and do write you emails back and do show up on deadline, because it's tough. I've tried to do it in the past, and Jason is right. It is like organizing cats on fire. But please go ahead. This is about Jeff, so go ahead.
And bath salts. They're really just, it's not just on fire.
All right, now you're losing them. You're losing our artists. I'm just kidding. They know, believe me.
They know. Well, listen, we'll get back to Jeff's final thoughts here, and his response to my adulation for being able to organize such people. And we'll talk with one of those such individuals right now, which is Jared George, about his memory from his youth, and something that warms his heart when he recalls those images, smells, songs.
First of all, always words of wisdom from my friend Jason here. I do try to, this may be more of an adult thing, but I do try to practice presence in the holiday times, especially something like Christmas. So I try not to do things where you're too distracted. I like to just be together. So that kind of imbues everything. It's not always about like watch another movie and zone out. I just want to play a card game together. I'm not even really a big games person, but it's more the fact that you're together at the table and you're talking and you're laughing, and it's the connection. So that it really guides a lot. And I think it comes from the fact that I had great Christmases as a child growing up. So one big thing for me is the tree trimming. I'm a really big tree trimming guy. I want everyone to be together. We put on Christmas carols, and some ornaments are new, some are older. I actually posted one on Instagram a week or two ago, this little elf that was my grandmother's, and now it's been passed down. So you can see that little guy on my Instagram. But the tree trimming is a really big thing for me. It really opens the season. Try to do it early in December. I know Duke of Avalon spoke about prior traditions where people wouldn't really do much until Christmas Eve. But we live in a different time now, and I try to stretch it out as long as possible. I give Thanksgiving its due, but after Thanksgiving is done here in the States, it's time for Christmas. So the tree goes up. I love the tree trimming. I'm really big on that. I agree with Jeff where I grew up with we went out and I think we actually chopped one down one year. We would go out and get the real trees when I was a kid. My parents did that. So the smell of the pine in the house is that's just something magical. And then extending it too, a little like we were talking about it into January, like keeping it going. I do it through Christmas carols. I know Christmas carols annoy some people, even the more modern ones, but I'm such a lunatic when it comes to Christmas. I love Christmas so much that even a lot of the cheesy modern stuff, I still like it because I just still have that association. So I listen to a lot of Christmas music. I have some I play on a stereo here as I work I've been doing it, sometimes like the oldies stuff. I like a lot of the stuff from all the classic stuff from mid last century, Bing Crosby and Sinatra and all that. But I also found there's these great playlists on YouTube of like old German Christmas music as well. It's a little more traditional. So I go back and forth all over the place. Yeah, but the music's transportive. Greensleeves in general is one of my favorite melodies of all time. And that is, for anyone that doesn't know, that was repurposed and they wrote new lyrics in the 1800s, and it's What Child Is This? It's when Christ was born of Mary. That song. There's just something we were just talking about in the beginning with Frody. There's a melancholy and a joy woven together. God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen also has that. It's a little dark. It's about death, but it's also there's a hope in all of this. So the music, being a musician, of course, is really, it just transports me. Like Jeff, sometimes I went to midnight mass on Christmas Eve growing up. We would do different things, sometimes Christmas morning, sometimes Christmas Eve. But the Christmas Eve midnight masses in particular, as I mentioned, my church had this thing where we'd all light each other's candles. And I should have mentioned before, the church, they turned the lights off. So there was no overhead lighting in the church. So the only light was the candles. Mesmerizing as a kid. And then also, actually, speaking of this, my brother and I went to a religious school, and we would have a Christmas show where each grade would get up and sing a couple of Christmas songs. And they'd do that just a couple of days before we went on the Christmas break. So you'd go back to school at night, and we had to wear a uniform. So you wouldn't be wearing your uniform. You'd be wearing your like little Christmas sweater when you're like 10, 11 years old. And well, really started earlier at 5, 6. It was all grades through 8th grade. They kind of combined elementary school and what we call middle school here in the States. And to go back at night at like 7 o'clock at night, and it's all dark and your parents meet you there. Like my dad would try to make it in time coming back from work, let's say. Just like being in the classroom and hanging out with your friends and waiting until it was your turn to go down to the gymnasium and sing the songs that your class sung. And in the meantime, you're in your classroom with your teacher kind of waiting, but people brought food. That was so much fun too. It was so weird. When you're a kid, school is this big, heavy thing, and it's such a big part of your life, and you can't imagine ever being older. You can't imagine being an adult. It's like school is all there is. You go back to school, but it's not for class, and it's at night, and you're not wearing your uniform. And you go down and sing your Christmas song. There was something about being in the school at night. It was a little creepy. Almost felt like you shouldn't be there, but it was a lot of fun. There was all this excitement in the air. You were about to go on Christmas break. Everyone was celebrating Christmas. So that was a lot of fun too. As I said, my brother and I still talk about that to this day. So there's a couple from my past.
Very fun, Jared. Those are the kind of things we have to be making, these sorts of memories and creating these sort of spaces, these pristine spaces, as we say in Going Free, for our youth today, so that they can have these memories, especially going forward into a world that just continues to get uglier and uglier. But Jeff, it has been magnificent having you on with us today, brother. I'd like to know where folks can find you and what you're working on and what you'll be working on next up there in the North Pole, and any final thoughts or benediction for the young ones running around the house from Santa Claus.
Well, thank you for that earlier, talking about the wrangling of our beloved artists. I love working with them. I am one. Luckily, I have some organizational skills to be able to do that. I enjoy doing it, and I love working with everybody, even when it's challenging. It's still rewarding. But let's see. You can catch us on our D Live, White Art Collective D Live. Check out our website. Check out our Memeing of a White Christmas Volume 3. That's over for sale over on the White Art Collective store. And let's see what else. Oh, this Saturday we have a special. So Lord Wolfshield is doing his top 20 countdown of his favorite top 20 whack songs of the year. So this is our first time doing this. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to start that. I think we're going to start it early Saturday at 8 p.m. EST. Let's see. And then I think, in the new year, I'm really excited about the prospects of everything. Like I said, we're going to work on formalizing what we're doing. I'm also going to work. I've been looking for today. I was putting out some tweets and stuff. We're going to find some marketing promotions people to help us break out into, I think, other broader spheres, because I think there's a lot of people who are ready to hear and see what we're doing. And I think that culture should be the leading edge of all
Yep.
of this, like the
Yep.
music. And it's like the music someone could hear that could bring them into the white positive sphere, or a book they would read like folk, or a story, or hear a poem, or see a short film, or eventually a feature-length film. So I think that this is the year that we're going to break out into that, because we've got the people, we've got this really solid core of incredible creators, and we just need to get those people aware of what's going on over here. I think that's where we're at. And then as we do that, we'll be able to expand more. Like, we've got a lot of ideas for shows, and I've got some ideas of how we could like create films from using green screen. And even though people are all over the place, like kind of almost create our own little style of filmmaking. That'd be kind of fun. And we would be able to do things that just interesting ways of making film, even though everybody's scattered, you know what I mean? And utilizing like the new the White Art Collective project section on the website and everything once we get that launched. But I think 2021 is going to be bright, and I'm excited about it. And I want to thank you guys. You guys are incredible supporters of the White Art Collective, and of course, just the white positive sphere in general. You guys do amazing work. I can't thank you enough. So great to see Jared now producing the music. I didn't get to hear the new one yet. I'm sorry I missed the premiere. I was pulled in a million directions, but yeah, I'm really excited for that. And there's so many great things on the horizon. And I just want to also just wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to all. It's going to be, everything is going to be all right. The future is bright, my friends. Hair.
Here. Thanks for reminding me. I just put the song link in the chat, at least to YouTube. But like we say with our streams here, like you're watching too, please don't rely mainly on YouTube. Go to our sites. mindsofgreatorder.com, jasonsnowhiteguilt.org. We share the afterparty.tv. It's kind of the catalog of what we do together, all these streams. And Jeff, you're absolutely right. I've been talking about that myself, even from posting my first song back about a month ago. That was the debut, because for anyone that doesn't know, I'm doing about a song a month. I'm not doing an album. I'm doing a rolling schedule, working on songs, releasing songs. There's a woman on Instagram who found me through the music, and then got into, it looks like some kind of an exchange with someone in comments, and it was like, I can't really disagree with what this guy's saying. It's reasonable. The other content about protecting the West and all that. So that's absolutely how it's going to happen. And we need to be very bold about that. And this is the time to do it. I was talking about that on Millennial too. So good on you. I'm sure we'll talk more about that privately as well. But all my best to you and yours and everyone listening tonight. And I know this is a little more topical, but if you happen to listen in replay too, to this kind of show, a Christmas special, well, my love and my best to you and your family as well. As I said, closing statement, my site is thegreatorder.com. So everything I do is very easy. Just remember that one thing. You can follow my social media, check out the music. As we said, we're also celebrating. My second song is now out, called Far Away. It's very different than the first one. It's a little more stark and moody for December. As I said, that's the cool thing about working on songs on this rolling schedule. So share it. It's available for download. Pay what you think it's worth. But everything that we do, whether it's the music, the streams Jason and I do, what Jeff is doing, and the tremendous swath of artists from the White Art Collective, there's something in there for everyone. Literally classical music, folk music, rock, electronic, metal, everything. Share it, support the artists. There's no support shaming, but share it around. We are incredibly shadow banned. it's embarrassing sometimes how I'll put out a tweet and I have over 4,000 followers and like 2 people see it. It's ridiculous. We know what's going on. We really do have to be the algorithm. We do rely on you all to share. We all have a part to play, and we appreciate that. We have the most positive, proactive community here. There's a center of gravity. Do you all feel it? There's a center of gravity that's formed, and I think, Jeff, I don't know if you agree. Jason and I feel that it was bubbling for a while, but I think 2020, a silver lining in 2020 is I think it really clicked this year. What we're doing, the White Art Collective, even Red Ice to some extent, they're doing their own thing. They focus on news a lot because that's been that's where their strength is right now. They have this production studio that's very professional, so they can put forth a good foot with that. But there's interplay with our thing and their thing, and they're very supportive. There's a nucleus, there's a gravitational pull of people that are not waiting for things to happen, that are doing things now, that aren't sitting around complaining, that aren't gossiping about other people. We're just putting our nose to the grindstone and working and doing things and making things happen. We have amazing people here in the chat and the community. Some of them put their names and faces out there. Some work behind the scenes, but doing all kinds of activism and cultural creation. Get involved. There's no excuse, but take this time to take a rest. We definitely need a rest, and we need our own reset, the right kind of reset from this year. So this week, this is the time to do it. A little quieter. Spend the time with your family. Like Jason said, be present. Don't roll your eyes at uncle this or grandpa that story because you might not have them next year.
That's right.
Connect. We are in this life together to live it fully and to share it fully. And this time of year is supposed to remind us of that beauty. So I leave you with that. My love to you. And Jason will take us out.
Yeah, well, Jeff, let me just say much love to you and your family and friends, and we'll let you go, brother, and we'll talk with you again soon, and then I'll go ahead and wrap up the show. So thank you for being with us, Jeff.
Thanks, guys. It's always a pleasure. Merry Christmas, all.
Merry Christmas. What a magnificent gentleman. And we will wrap up, ladies and gentlemen. We're tapping out tonight. I want to thank the great Roy Danton for moderating tonight. A big Merry Christmas, good Yule, Happy New Year, Promethean holiday greetings to that gentleman. And we will read really quickly these financial gifts over on Entropy. We have $10 from Insane Hermit. Hope you can respond next live stream. I've been booted from YouTube, so I don't get alerts when your shows are on. Do you think Bitcoin will skyrocket in 2021? The far right needs funding. If so, don't you think it's wise to stir the FOMO in your audience? Keep up the good work, brother. Well, thank you so much. And perhaps we'll address that in the next Going Free. Mrs. Jess Horse, a big Merry Christmas to this wonderful woman, financially gifting $7 and writing here, Merry Christmas Yuletide. Same to you, sweet mother of a baseball team. And finally, we have here Mr. Bloom, $25 US. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, both. Any advice on how to get back into reading? I've committed myself to read your books, Jason. However, I have not been a consistent reader for years when it comes to books. Does either of you do anything in particular when reading a book? Example, go into a room with no electronics and set a time limit. Very simply, I would say if you've been away from anything, set yourself small, achievable goals and victories, even if it's read for 5 minutes. If you start with Crucible is designed to encourage those with little victories, chapters, very small chapters, many very small chapters, so that you can feel that you've had a beginning and an end. And that's very important, especially if you've been away from reading for a while. Jared, did you have anything to add to that sort of a suggestion?
I was pretty much going to say the same thing about starting small, incrementally, and maybe start with something that's really fun for you, that you can look forward to, and then get to stuff that might be challenging or would be good for you, but it's not the first thing you'd want to pick up. But yeah, pretty simple.
Well, let me say that I am going to put a spotlight on a couple people I saw in the chat over the course of the night. I saw Old Bag was with us, Old Bag. I also saw the great Justin Lee And also Matt was in the live chat as well. I want to thank everybody for financially gifting, who financially gifted, everybody who participated in the live chat. Merry Christmas, good Yule, Happy New Year, Promethean holiday greetings to everyone watching live or watching in replay. This service to white well-being is about love. It's about our people. It's about protecting us from anti-whiteism. The anti-whites already dominate the world we live in. They already dominate the institutions. They will make things worse. We have to be resilient. We have to be imbued with the psychological defense for their psychological warfare so that it falls flat when it lands on us, particularly our children. And in the spirit of a very white Christmas, I love every single one of you, and we look forward to having you again here on us